my name is G. In this video, we're going to cover how to configure our three extensions that we just installed in the previous video, which are one for Python language support, another to automatically generate docstrings, and a third to graphically view our unit tests from within Visual Studio Code. Before we get into the details about configuring each of these three extensions, I wanted to talk a little bit about how to configure your settings in Visual Studio Code in general. So the way that we can view our settings is by clicking File from the top bar, navigate down to Preferences, and then select Settings from this menu. We'll also notice that you can type Control, as the keyboard shortcut. We'll see that there's a nice visual interface that we can do, and we can change things like just various options for everything possibly imaginable. Another thing that I want to show you in this view is that we can switch this graphical UI view to a more technical view, which is all of Visual Studio Code settings are driven or have a JSON representation. So this files.exclude option, if we go back to the UI, you see files exclude. So that's kind of how Visual Studio Code is representing this option under the hood, is through JSON and these keys and values. So similarly, OSE Workbench platform includes a command that can output a JSON object for us that will give us some of these settings. And there are two types of settings in Visual Studio Code. There are user settings, which apply globally no matter where you are. There are workspace settings that only affect the particular workspace or directory that you have opened up. For our workbenches, we're going to configure it so that our settings only affect the workbench that we're in. So without further ado, let's open up the terminal, and the first thing that we need to do is activate our OSE Fastener Conda environment. So I can do that by typing conda activate and the name of the environment, OSE Fastener. Enter. The next thing I need to do is to cd or change directories into the OSE Fastener Workbench directory. And now I'm going to type osewb-h for help. And the command that we're interested in today is the editor config command, which will output configuration for Visual Studio Code. So let's type osewb editor config and hit enter. And we'll see here is a JSON object that is describing how to configure those three extensions, the one for Python language support, the one for automatically generating docstrings, the one for the viewing our unit tests graphically is also driven by the settings for the Python language support extension. So let's type osewb editor config -h for more help on what we can do with this command. So we'll notice two things. We can pass the -m flag or --merge workspace settings flag to merge any existing Visual Studio Code workspace settings in with this settings object. So for example, the workspace settings are stored within this .vscode settings.json file. So if I were to test or just add some key like something with a value of else, and then I type osewb editor config -m to merge that with the workspace settings, I see that it added the something else value into this object and merged it in. The second option is the overwrite workspace settings overwrite workspace settings option. And if we do that, then it'll actually save this configuration object in this settings.json file for us, which will configure all these 3 extensions for us automatically. So let's do that. Editor config. Let's just type -o instead of -- overwrite workspace settings. It's going to prompt me, do I really want to overwrite that file with this? And I'll say yes, so I can just hit enter because yes is the default. And it's going to tell me that it successfully overwrote this file. And that's all I need to do to configure these extensions. Everything should be set up for me to start my development now. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you had any questions or comments in the video below, and I'll see you in the next one.